Hello and welcome to the Morning Scoop. It is Monday, August 22nd. Today is the Daily Buckeye Show. At the time of recording, this is a little bit rainy right now, but you know what? We got some NFL football on, and what better time to talk about some Ohio State football than a nice rainy day. So, today we are going to be talking about what I believe are the three keys for Ohio State to either win a national championship or at the very least compete for one. These aren't going to be particularly profound, but they are very, very interesting topics and they are very worthwhile of discussing. So let's dive right into it. Firstly, to no one's surprise, CJ Stroud is the team is going to go as he does. He's the unquestioned alpha of the team. He's the one with the keys to the Ferrari right now. Through his own performance, he is the guy that his teammates are going to be looking to in the fourth quarter when when the game is coming down to the wire. That's an enormous pressure at a place like Ohio State, and Stroud really has to prove that he's up to that. I think we saw a really good preview of that in the Rose Bowl coming down the stretch. The throws he was making, he was a guy that was just not going to be denied. And by all accounts, the leadership transformation that he's really undergone has been really one of the bigger highlights of the offseason. The staff has been very impressed with him. Mickey Marotti has been very impressed with him. You heard him talk about it in his pressers. He feels more confident. He's started to find his way really in the weight room and getting his body right. When you have that kind of forward moving momentum like that, and especially for Stroud, who's coming into a big year where he has a chance to be the number one overall draft pick, guys could either crumble under that or they could really embrace it and just have a truly, truly magical season. And I think Stroud is really the key to that, and I think he really I think he has embraced it, and I think he's going to have just an unbelievable year. The gold standard for quarterback play now, in my opinion, really is Joe Burrow in 2019, and probably Deshaun Watson in 2016 is another example of that, especially when he was playing in the playoff. But Burrow was the gold standard of leadership. He was the kind of guy where if he got pressured, he became angry and he wanted to take his anger out on the other team. And he really developed and fine tuned that killer instinct that I really think Stroud needs to find. And I think he does have it. I think we're going to see it. And Stroud is really capable of having a year like Burrow did in 2019. He definitely has the supporting cast to do it. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Emeka Egbuka, while they may not be Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson yet, they're certainly no slouches and could very easily be in that conversation of guys who are just unfathomably dominant college receivers. But really, for the Buckeyes to win it all, they're going to go as Stroud does this year, and his role is incredibly vital. And I think for them to win it all, he's going to need to channel his inner killer and finish teams off like he did at the Rose Bowl. And I think he's going to. I really do. Now, moving on, obviously, this one is obvious. Jim Knowles in the defense. Much has been made over the defense for the past few years, and really rightfully so. They were an absolute train wreck the past 2 years. Last year was just rinse and repeat of 2020, except somehow worse. The scheme was broken. The defensive staff was a disaster from an organizational and communicational standpoint, and the players knew it. So you have just a hodgepodge of terrible things happening. So the defensive staff really, I don't think they had much trust in each other, and I don't think the players by extension had any faith in the staff. So really, it's just a bad deal. And that's obviously incredibly major to the point, when all those factors are considered, and Ryan Day realized he had to blow the whole thing up, and he did. He brought in Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles is really probably the most hyped up coordinator hire the Buckeyes have had since probably Day and Kevin Wilson came in 2017, if we're really being honest with ourselves. And it's really for good reason. His unit at Oklahoma State was one of the best in the entire country. They were dominant. They played fast. They played physical. They played really good defense in a conference where you don't usually see very good defense. They were sound in their assignments. And when you think about all that, and you think about, okay, he was doing this at Oklahoma State. Now he's going to be at Ohio State, where he has just a bigger talent pool to work with. I would say that Ohio State is probably going to have guys with better football acumen, although it's no disrespect to Oklahoma State, but still. And from what we're hearing, no one is really happier about any of this than the players themselves. They're excited to show what they can do. They know they weren't well coached last year. They know they're getting coached much better this year. You can see it in the media availabilities. Their eyes light up with a little bit more of a twinkle when they're asked about Jim Knowles, and they're real happy to answer all the questions. And the reason being, it's a very player-friendly system. They're excited to showcase their talents. He's letting the defensive line cut it loose a little bit more, so more of a pass rush and more sacks are going to happen, more big plays. And the guys are just excited to fly around. And, so really, what does Knowles need to do to get this defense performing at a national championship level? So, in my opinion, they really need to be a top 30 to top 20 defense for the most of the year. I think with this offense, that's about what you need to have that sort of ideal balance as you improve throughout the year. And that should really be perfectly obtainable. They have the talent to do it. They just need to be coached better, and I think they are being coached better. But when you look at where they were last year, there really should be, in theory, nowhere to go but up. They ranked 59th last year in total defense and 38th in scoring defense. And they were at even worse 96th in pass defense and 100th in opponent third down conversions. That last stat to me is really especially disturbing because that speaks to how rarely they were winning on first and second down. That screams to me they were in a lot of situations where it was third and short if you're going to be converting at that type of rate. And they were also, keep in mind, they're also giving up some just egregious third and longs. So those are numbers that they really have to improve, especially, when it comes to getting off the field. They're going to have to win first and second down, get teams more into that second down and 8, second down and 10 situation. That's rough to be in from a game flow standpoint. You want to be in second and 5, second and 4 instead of second and 8 and second and 10, because then you have further to go to get yourself a manageable third down. So that really has to be where it starts. And I really think just by virtue of having a competent defensive staff and good alignment in the scheme, and you make sure the players are well coached, that should account for a 10 to 20% difference right there, give or take, just right off the bat. Now, if you have talented players who are going to play with confidence and are well coached and are getting better as the year goes on, getting more comfortable, sky should really be the limit. It really would not surprise me if they're playing at a level that's top 20, top 30 for most of the year, and then once they really hit their stride, say by the 10th or 11th game or 9th game, they could be playing like a top 10 defense. Who knows? Maybe like in the way that they were playing in 2014. But, if they're going to do that, then look out, because with this offense, it's just going to be a perfect embarrassment of riches. So moving on to the third one, leadership. We touched upon this briefly with Stroud. He is now the alpha leader of the team. But I really think the leadership on the team as a whole has to be a lot better than it was in 2021 for the team to win it all. There were way too many times last year, against teams like Oregon, Michigan, and even some of the grinded out games like Nebraska, where the team just really looked kind of lethargic and flat, really. They really looked like they lacked desire. They lacked desire at times. And that obviously starts with the coaching staff and the culture they instilled, and that flows on down. But, Ryan Day, I think, corrected the culture issues this offseason. I think this offseason was a lot rougher on the guys as a whole. And the coaching staff that was brought in, it's a much tougher staff overall, in my opinion. But, coaches can really only do so much. And we all played team sports. A lot of us played football. We all know what it was like to have those moments where things were really kind of down, and you had players that could kind of pull you out of that. So the players really have to be the ones that hold the other guys to the standards set by the coaches. It didn't feel like the team had great leadership last year, and it just seemed like no one really had that one guy who they really looked toward when things weren't really going right. It just didn't seem like there was a guy to pull the team out of the fire. It didn't feel like there was a JT Barrett like the 2017 Penn State game, at least not until the Rose Bowl. Or even an Evan Spencer like from 2014, or even a Chase Young in 2019 in the second half against Penn State, where he came in and made a few big plays and helped curb the Nittany Lions' momentum. They need guys like that this year. They really do. They need guys who are going to make the big time plays and the big time moments. The guys who are going to keep the team's spirits up. I will say I think the situation as a whole definitely feels a lot better going into it on this front. I think the leadership has really improved, and again, I think the offseason played a really big part of that. It was a brutal offseason. Mickey Marotti really drove these guys hard, and I really think some leaders emerged from this, and I think the team is much closer as a whole as a result. Stroud, Cade Stover, and Cam Babb are the clear leaders of the offense, and at least in the eyes of the staff. And they even if Jackson Smith-Njigba was not voted a captain, he's still one of those guys who has ice in his veins, who will make the big time plays when you really need him. But Stroud and Stover are two really, really big, present, and vocal guys that are going to be really important. Cam Babb has the obvious, senior leadership aspect to him that's going to be very important. He's been through a lot. Teammates really look up to him for what he's been through and how he's handled himself. So he's going to be a big factor when it comes to that sort of thing. And then when it comes to the defense, I think Tommy Eichenberg seems like the clear leader of that unit. He's a really vocal guy, definitely a lunch pail guy who means a lot to the team. Always looking to do the work. He's willing to do the dirty work. Court Williams may be the hardest worker on the team, and he has those grown man leadership qualities that you really want out of a defensive football player. And Ryan Day echoed it the first day he stepped on campus that he was a future captain here, and that's proven to be true. Tyler Friday is also very similar in that regard. He's another really hard worker. He does a lot of the dirty work. He's an older guy, so kind of an older soul relative to the younger guys on the team, and he's another one who's been through a lot. He's been through a lot of adversity. Adversity reveals character in a lot of ways. And I think this is a very strong character group, especially what they've been throughout the offseason and all that stuff. So overall, I'm really much more optimistic about the leadership situation and about it, at least going into the season, than we were last year. I think it obviously has to be proven on the field. It has to be proven in those moments where the game is on the line and somebody's got to make a play, or somebody has got to keep the team's head in the game. Things could be going wrong. You got to keep them in the game. You got to keep them believing they have a chance to win. I think they did not have that last year, but they're setting themselves up to have a much better position there this year. So, anyway, I think if these three things really come to fruition, I have little doubt that Ohio State will be, if they don't win a national championship, they'll be squarely in the mix for it. I think the team is too talented in a lot of ways, and I think the team, if you can just fine-tune some of those aspects that a lot of people don't really think about. You fine-tune having leaders. You make sure everybody's confident. You make sure everybody's playing bold and aggressive. That's really when you start building a special group. So I really think that these three things are very important. Let me know what you guys think. This has been The Morning Scoop. We will be back tomorrow with more Buckeye coverage. Thank you so much for listening, and you guys all have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.